Let's read.
£500,000 when you can, to me, open doors.
Is that a deal?
Yeah.
£500,000 in cash, a secret undercover sting, and a woman desperate enough to sell her soul for a way out. This is the moment the royal dream didn't just crack. It shattered into a million pieces. Imagine waking up in a palace and realizing you can't even afford the gas to leave the driveway. For years, the world watched a spectacular descent from unlimited luxury to a crushing mountain of debt that even a king couldn't fix. But how does someone go from a blank check at the palace to being officially evicted in 2026? The truth behind the bank balances is far more calculated than you think. If you want to stay ahead of the biggest stories the headlines are too afraid to touch, join our channel by hitting that subscribe button. We'd love to have you along for the ride. Imagine living in a world where your morning coffee is served on silver, but your bank account is effectively a black hole. In 1986, the woman the world knew as a royal bride walked into a life that seemed to have no price tag. According to insiders, she genuinely believed the crown was a bottomless ATM. She wasn't just entering a family, she was entering a system where every bill simply vanished into thin air. But here's the terrifying part. That sense of security was actually a financial trap that was already beginning to close. The transition was instant and overwhelming. Reports suggest that within months, the demand for a designer wardrobe and a massive personal staff became her new baseline. It's claimed she never looked at a single receipt because, in her mind, the carriage ride would never end. She was building a millionaire's taste on a foundation that wasn't actually hers to keep. While the public saw a glamorous lifestyle, the reality was a growing addiction to a level of spending that no normal salary could ever support. But then, the unthinkable happened. Rumors indicate that even before the marriage hit the rocks, the cracks in the ledger were becoming impossible to ignore. Behind the palace walls, the golden handcuffs were starting to chafe. She was trapped in a cycle of extreme luxury with zero personal liquid assets to back it up. If the royal support disappeared tomorrow, she would be left with a world-class lifestyle and a $0 balance. What happens when the person holding the checkbook finally decides to walk away? Insiders say the true shock didn't come from the headlines or the scandals, but from the moment the divorce papers were finally signed. Most people expected a settlement that would secure her for life, but the actual numbers were a brutal wake-up call that would change everything. And that settlement, it was just the beginning of a financial death spiral that no one saw coming. The most famous divorce in history was a heist for one woman, but for the other, it was a financial ambush. While the world watched the princess walk away with a staggering £17 million, Sarah was handed a settlement that was effectively pocket change in the world of the ultra-wealthy. Reports suggest she signed for a fraction of that amount, roughly £900,000. To most, that sounds like a fortune. But in the circles she traveled, it was barely enough to keep the lights on for a single year. The safety net didn't just fray, it was cut with surgical precision. Suddenly, the woman who had never seen a bill was responsible for everything: mortgages, private security, first-class travel for a massive entourage. Insiders say she was trying to run a marathon on a broken leg. She kept the title, but she lost the treasury. It is claimed she desperately tried to maintain the royal standard while her actual bank balance was screaming for a reality check. But the spending didn't stop. Rumors indicate she continued to tip like a billionaire even as the red ink began to spread. She was buying expensive gifts and funding lavish trips for friends, allegedly terrified that if the money stopped flowing, the people would stop showing up. She went from having a blank check to being the supermarket Duchess. But the joke was on the public. Behind the scenes, the debt was growing like a shadow. How do you fix $1 million hole when your only skill is being famous? Desperate for a solution, she turned her eyes toward America, convinced she could trade her name for a business empire. It was a gamble that would either save her or bury her forever. But as she would soon find out, the business world is far less forgiving than the palace. And her first major venture was about to become a financial disaster that would leave her more vulnerable than ever before. The most expensive lesson in the world is learning that a famous name doesn't pay the rent. By the mid-2000s, the former royal bride realized that her settlement was drying up and her mountain of personal debt was officially becoming a crisis. Reports suggest she was staring down a nearly $6 million deficit. a number so large it would have bankrupted almost anyone else. But instead of retreating, she decided to go all in on a high-stakes gamble in America. She launched a lifestyle and wellness brand, allegedly convinced she could become the next big global mogul. It was a bold move, but the math behind it was a disaster. Insiders say the company was plagued by massive overhead costs and a spending strategy that made no sense for a startup. While she was trying to build a business empire, she was still living like she had a palace treasury backing her. Rumors indicate she refused to declare bankruptcy, calling it the easy way out. Even as her advisors warned that the ship was sinking, she was pouring every pound she had into a dream that was rapidly turning into a financial nightmare. The collapse was brutal. By 2009, her main business venture had reportedly created a massive hole in her finances, forcing her to make a heartbreaking choice. To keep the creditors at bay, she quietly sold her beloved Swiss ski chalet, a place that was supposed to be her family's ultimate sanctuary. It was a clear sign that the walls were closing in. It is claimed she was surviving on high-interest loans and the sheer hope that the next big deal would finally save her. But hope isn't a financial strategy. As the debt continued to mount, she found herself backed into a corner where desperation started to override judgment. This is the moment where the story takes a dark, irreversible turn. Because when the business world said no, she allegedly started looking for money in much more dangerous places. What happened next wasn't just a business failure. It was a scandal that would eventually lead to a secret suitcase full of cash and a fall from grace that the palace could never forgive. When you're down to your last pound, how much is your integrity worth? For the woman the world once called a duchess, the answer was exactly £500,000. By 2010, the financial walls weren't just closing in, they were crushing her. Reports suggest she was so desperate she fell straight into a trap that would permanently freeze her earning power. She was caught on camera allegedly promising to open any door at the palace in exchange for a briefcase full of cash. It wasn't just a scandal, it was a public admission that the royal bank account was officially empty. The fallout was a financial execution. Within 48 hours, high-paying speaking gigs were cancelled, and luxury brands scrambled to distance themselves. Rumors indicate that her market value, once her greatest asset, plummeted overnight. It is claimed she was surviving on the lick of a spoon, a phrase she used herself to describe just how little was left of her fortune. But as her public income vanished, her private debts didn't. Insiders say she was forced into a series of increasingly frantic moves just to stay afloat. One of those moves was the secret sale of a prime London townhouse in Belgravia. According to sources, she had purchased the property as an investment, but by 2025, she was reportedly forced to sell it at a £400,000 loss. It is believed the money wasn't for her daughters, but was actually a desperate attempt to plug the massive holes in her daily lifestyle. Every time she tried to build a new financial foundation, a fresh scandal would pull the rug out from under her. But the 2010 sting was only the beginning of a much deeper, more dangerous association. While the public focused on the cash in the briefcase, a paper trail was forming that linked her to a billionaire whose name would eventually become a global death sentence for any reputation. Insiders say she wasn't just looking for a quick payout, she was looking for a permanent savior. And as we head into 2026, those old connections are finally coming back to demand a price that she can't possibly pay. What happens when the only person left to help you is the one person the world won't let you talk to? By April 2026, the final safety net didn't just break, it was incinerated. Reports suggest that the woman once known for her royal status is now effectively a nomad, living out of a luxury medical resort in Austria, while her credit cards take what insiders call an absolute hammering. It is claimed she is racking up thousands of pounds in debt every single day, allegedly convinced that one last big deal will save her. But the world she once relied on has finally closed its doors. In early 2026, the golden handcuffs were officially unlocked, but they were replaced by something much colder: total financial isolation. The 2026 death spiral began with a rejection that sent shockwaves through the publishing world. Insiders say she pitched a revealing memoir to major US houses with a staggering $2 million price tag, but the response was a deafening silence. According to sources, the recent unsealing of high-profile legal files has made her a toxic asset in the business world. Rumors indicate that potential partners are terrified of being linked to the fresh wave of documents that allegedly place her at the center of decades-old controversies. Without the book deal, her plan to write her way out of debt has officially hit a brick wall. But the real blow was the loss of her home. In February 2026, reports surfaced that the one-year grace period to vacate the Royal Lodge had finally expired. It is believed she is no longer living with the man who shared her life for 30 years, and her daughters have allegedly offered only temporary accommodation. To make matters worse, she has formally ceased using her royal title, a move that insiders say has stripped away her last piece of marketing leverage. She is no longer a Duchess. She is a woman with a famous past and a bank balance that is reportedly swimming against a tidal wave of interest. How do you maintain a five-star lifestyle when your main income stream has completely evaporated? Insiders say the situation is now all about survival. It is claimed she is considering a multi-million-dollar tell-all interview as a final, desperate move to clear her debts before the interest buries her forever. But as we look at the wreckage of her financial empire, a much bigger question remains. Is this just another temporary low, or are we watching the final permanent exit of a woman who simply couldn't afford to be royal anymore? The answer lies in the one place the cameras haven't reached yet: the final secret chapter of her story. In the end, her story is a brutal reminder that in the world of high-stakes luxury, there is no such thing as a free ride. She allegedly spent like there was no tomorrow, only to find that tomorrow eventually arrives with a collection notice. Whether she was a victim of a system she didn't understand or the architect of her own downfall, the result is the same. The royal checkbook is closed, the palace doors are locked, and the legacy of the woman who never saw a bill is now written in bankruptcy papers and leaked emails. So, what do you think? Was she simply caught in a royal trap? Or was this downfall inevitable from the moment she first said, "I will"? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden side of the headlines, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more untold stories coming your way, and you won't want to miss a single one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.